Today we will speak on the research field of political geography. Imagine that the room where you are now is an independent country. Think about the possible location of your room's capital city. What would determine your choice or where to create it? Will you put it in the center or in the darkest corner or just next to the door? How can the selected location impact upon political processes at home and abroad? What can influence your decision to relocate the capital of your room? What political effect will it have? This and other questions are in the research field of special discipline, political geography, but on the state level. There are at least one country on the world political map that will have the same geography as your room. It will be isolated from other countries with some barriers as walls and will have limited access to other nations through the doors. This idea was developed by Halford Mackinder, representative of the British School of Geopolitics at the first half of 20th century. Please give a glance on this map. You see how river basins divide continents into zones attached to different oceans. However, there exists a world region, in gray, which is unacceptable to a sea power. It is the heartland, the core of the Earth. This region is situated in the middle of Eurasia, with deserts and large mountains protecting it. Most importantly, the regional rivers like the Volga, the Ural, the Sirdarya, the Amudarya do not flow into an ocean, which gives the best protection. Together with the isolated realm of Lenaland, the lands located along the rivers on the Arctic Ocean, the Pechora, the Ob, the Yenisei, the Lena, and cut off from world maritime trade by eternal ice, it forms a vast space in the northeastern part of Eurasia, which is beyond reach of any sea power. If any power, be it the Mongolian Empire or the Russian Empire and the USSR, holds sway over the region, it will be the overwhelming force in international relations. At the same time, isolation from world trade routes will always be an endurance test for such countries, as they will have to catch up with the coastal neighbors involved in the global exchange of goods, technologies, and ideas. So let's come back from this to the research field of political geography. Political geography as a discipline draws knowledge from political science and geography. Political science studies the political aspects of social activity, or in other words, setting and reaching goals in society, the two processes linked to shaping the institutional structure of the state. Geography focuses on the spatial dimensions both of natural, physical geography, and societal, social geography processes on the Earth's surface. Thus, political geography, as discipline combining two sciences, deals with the spatial dimension of political processes and phenomena. Try answering the following questions to see if there are some regular patterns of how space impacts on politics. Would the nature of international relations change if every state were located on a separate island? Would the nature of social conflicts change in the absence of state borders and migration restrictions? Would the efficiency of political institutions in the country change if all residents could gather in one room? Would electoral behavior of individuals change if right-wingers live in the east of the state and leftists reside in the west? The yes answer implies that political geography can exist as a separate discipline. Once Swiss geographer Walter Tobler suggested the first law of geography, which runs as everything is related to everything else, but near things are more related than distant things. It means that geography studies the attributes of an object which step from its spatial connections with other objects. This is called horizontal conditionality, rather than its own location and attributes defined by its position, which is vertical conditionality. It is spatial connections between objects that can explain political phenomena in geography. For instance, it would be wrong to say that democracy can arise only in a small-sized state. At the same time, the hypothesis that democracy is more likely to emerge in a state surrounded by democracies looks quite consistent. The starting point for political geography is the fact that the Earth's spatial organization reorganized the territorial distribution of political power. However, this is not always the case, and there might be some exceptions. Research in political geography aims at determining the extent to which the basic hypothesis of political geography is relevant and can explain political processes. Political space resembles multi-layered pie in a way. A political map of the world basically demonstrates only the state level. In fact, being physically in one place, we found ourselves at several layers of political space at the same time. Some of them interact, while others can exist independently. For example, MGIMO University is situated in the southwest of Moscow. Vital utilities needed for the university to function are addressed at municipal level. Transportation issues are tackled by the government of Moscow at a higher regional level. The government coordinates its policy with the regions of the Central Federal District of Russia at the supranational level. The state constitutes the key political space for the university at the Russian higher education policy, and it is developed at the national level. However, it's also shaped in certain aspects by agreements with integration associations in which Russia belongs at the macro-regional level. Finally, there are matters in which the higher education policy is established at the global level, for instance by the Bologna process or UNESCO. Thus, MGIMO students' life is regulated by numerous organizations and bodies simultaneously, with some being hierarchically suborganized to other ones and the others acting independently. This regulation and decision-making institutions are dispersed across different levels of political space. The spatial organization is illustrative of the key functions of territory in socio-political processes. On the one hand, it combines different politics layers into a cohesive multi-level process. This is the integrative function. On the other hand, it splits the mentioned process into levels, which gives rise to development of dichotomies: native, lion, internal, external, etc. This is a fragmenting function. Although contemporary political geography uses traditional qualitative and quantitative research, a number of spatial tools of analysis are also available. First, mapping or cartography. It denotes an operation that associates different political objects and phenomena to geographical locations. It makes it possible to align or distribute objects relative to one another. The next step is searching for the closest entities to the designed object and analyzing the relevant location patterns. Finally, the overlay of cartographic information, which implies taking different thematic maps on the same area and placing them on the top of one another to form a new map. And map scale changes can help to gain the new information about spatial distribution patterns. Second, clustering refers to grouping data into regions, spatially contiguous clusters, or horions, space-time clusters, which allows arriving at a conclusion about social structures and political processes. The process involves distinguishing territories on the basis of some feature or condition and its relationship and comparability with other spatial elements. Finally, the third, spatial analysis, defines the search for those location patterns which explain the nature of political objects and processes. This method helps to identify key and secondary features of the space, spatial dependence vectors, and spatial barriers to dependence, and draws the hierarchical structure showing the interdependence of elements and levels of spatial organization. At the end, let's speak about the subdisciplines of political geography. Particular subject matters of political geography fall within the scope of those subdisciplines, examining individual levels of political space. To be more precise, geopolitics, geography of international relations, deals with supranational relations. Country area studies concentrate on national relations, and regional political science studies subnational relations. Country or area studies include specific subfields such as border studies or limnology, capital city studies, and electoral geography. They analyze borders, capital cities, and voting cleavages respectively. Finally, in addition, there are numerous fields of studies overlapping with political geography. Especially they are called human geography, historical geography, geographical conflict studies, and world regional studies.